Tonight, another snowy night in Narragansett. The first item is the approval of the minutes, January 21st, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item is a presentation from Sally Latimer, a fundraising update on the water tower. Ms. Latimer could not make it tonight, so we will continue that to the next meeting, assuming Ms. Latimer is available. We'll now move on to the open forum. Please state your name and address upon approach to the podium. Mr. Vengermish, or Dr. Vengermish.
Hi, Richard Vangermish, 55 Osceola. Sort of an old refrain, but much progress has taken place in terms of the public, current employees, retirees, and town council members as to the extent of our unfunded liabilities for pensions and OPEB. We have reached the point of counting these as long-term debt. Some progress has been made and some decent progress in the recent public safety contract. It's a good start. No changes so far with retirees, but a serious conversation has begun. From a meeting we had last week with some state officials here, we know now that the town will not be able to go over the 4% cap. This means increases in our funding of the ARC, the annual required contribution, must be squeezed out of the projected expenditures in each of the fiscal years, i.e. we're going to be squeezed, we're going to be cash strapped. In the long run, and what the long run is debatable, but predictable to the extent one can predict new medical advances, which are quite expensive. We will not have the cash to pay our pensions and most definitely our other post-employment obligations to our retirees. We need, that was quite clear at the meeting, a 5-year, sound like Joe Stalin, strategic plan with help from legal and business analysts who have experienced these plans, who can supply the knowledge and experience with pension and OPEB issues. It's a 5-year plan ending in 2019 that will deal with retirees, with current negotiations and future negotiations, and retirees to bring us to an ARC that is sustainable. As part of this process may well be privatization. I think that is one way to move employees out of the plans. I think a better way that all new and non-vested employees must start with a defined contribution plan rather than a defined benefit plan. Just a 1 second on a defined benefit plan. It has pluses because that is yours, it is your estate. With the defined contribution plan, you go, your estate gets nothing. So a defined benefit plan isn't all that bad.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. That 4% increase is unacceptable. It's just not appropriate. It's not the right thing to do. Household income peaked in 1999 at $56,000. Adjusted for inflation, it has fallen to $51,000 by 212. Income reduction on the people on the outside here. Men who work full-time year-round had median earnings of $49,398. That's a decline of 4% from 1973, adjusted for inflation. We've had 40 years of stagnation. The median household income has fallen 5.7% since 2008. Our pay is going down. Our income is going down. You must follow suit. You can't raise taxes to deal with this pension plan. It's just not an acceptable idea. As I said before, during negotiations of any future contracts, no more pension plans administered by the town. That just can't happen because what I hear on a pension side, NIHART, I thought I heard 7.5% return. And they're projecting a 7.5% return to justify funding these pension plans. Well, Detroit pensions are underfunded by as much as $3.5 billion, in part because of unrealistic assumptions of 8%. So they had unrealistic expectations of 8%, and we're thinking about 7.5%. So right now, NIHART, our good guys out there, are misreading. We're not on the right road here. In the journal, Providence annual return of 6.9%, Tiverton 3.45, state-run pension return of 6.6, 7.5% by NIHART, wrong, can't be done. So we're going along on making assumptions that can't support the pension plan that you're trying to administer. Knock it off, can't do it. Then you look at Dow Jones. I guess, you know, NIHART, we got to invest in something. And my old stockbroker says, well, if you want to make a lot of money, you got to go in the stock market. You can't go in bonds, you can't go in CD, you go to the stock market. Stock market. In the year 2000, if just to deal with inflation alone, the stock market would have to be 16,311. So the stock market hasn't even adjusted for inflation. So the returns on the stock market can't justify some kind of income for a pension administration. There is just no way we can handle it. We just can't do it. So now we have to fall back, and they'll have to just deal with Social Security and let the feds print money. The town should stop its idea of trying to deal with pension. They have the wrong direction here with the 7.5%. The income now we have to look at more than 4% tax. That can't happen. So we're just going to make a change, and it's up to you to do that now. And I understand. I really don't have a good background in finance, and it's really difficult. And I don't expect you to also be able to deal with the finance. But right now, there's all kinds of negative indicators for you to continue on this pension program. You can't do it. Let everyone go to Social Security and do their own plan, IRAs, whatever you're going to do. No town pension for any future employees that you hire. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shabshelowitz.
Thank you for having that URI meeting. I found it very interesting. I was a little saddened that it didn't take a more positive, proactive spin on what URI can do to be a true partner in our community. It was more of a reactive towards a lot of the alcohol problems. And I hope they continue to come, and we just don't have a token first meeting, because I've been to plenty of those. And I think there's a lot the students and the university could do to contribute to the town. Like, for instance, at the library, if they could think about maybe contributing a partnership in helping us expand the library facilities, because a lot of their students do use the library. We want to talk about the culture in this town for the residents that live here year-round and what's happening to our town. And I'm very glad all those people came, but I would like to have more dialogue on what they can do as far as changing the culture and not just reacting to chronic alcohol and drug problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garceau.
an open forum, I'm told.
Yes,
I missed the approval of the minutes.
yes.
I have a concern. May I address it at this time pertaining to the minutes? In there, there's a number pertaining to what came from the town manager in there. Did you approve that too?
What are you referring to?
There's an item in there pertaining to a meeting, and the response has something to do with the bike pass. It's number 15, I believe. Well, let me just share with my concerns, and you can't change it anyway. The concerns that I have, we have had in the past a procedure for the town council and the town manager to put in reports. And I'm concerned that I believe that that should have been part of a report by the town manager, okay, in a report, okay, a managerial report. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is in regards to open forum. In regards to the minutes of the town council meeting minutes on December 2nd, it's at that time that you, the town council members, were addressing questions from the public and so forth on an agenda items. There was at least 3 or 4, and one was pertaining to the field for the school, a bond issue for athletic field, I believe. There was another one pertaining to, you'll have to excuse me, memory's not too good. The sewers, okay? There was the sewers, there was the facility for the police departments, I believe, and so forth. And the other one did not become a bond issue. There was one, I'm sorry, but I can't recall that one. Do you remember?
Ladder truck.
Ladder truck, okay. I am concerned on the minutes pertaining to the school one. When they put in their minutes, which appears here, they named the people that appeared, and they also included comments pertaining to if they were in favor or, you know, approving or whatever. They made, in other words, comments were made, not just their name. Do you follow what I'm saying? Okay, when it came to Jerusalem, the sewers, there is no mention of what the folks said. Why is there such a difference between the school committee pertaining to the athletic field that allows them to put comments if they're in favor or not in favor or whatever? And yet, the town council meeting only gives their names. And I also must say, there is a person who spoke in favor, and there was not one person in Jerusalem who spoke against the sewers that appeared before you. You are missing a name of a person who came before you. His name is not included in there. And I would appreciate that you review the digital tapes and see that his name gets included in there. And please try to address that the public, the residents, have a voice when they come before you, okay? I'll give you the name that I saw. It's a Mr. Bill Lyons. His name does not appear anywhere there. Also, I, as a resident of Briggs Farms, and involved with many other people for the sewers in Briggs Farms, we got them after a second try. It did not cost anybody else in this town 1 penny except for the people who got the sewers. We also received a grant of $500,000, and I believe that there wasn't any grants at this time. Those people in Briggs Farms deserved to have sewers. There was no objections from any of the residents that came before you, if I'm correct. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. 2 of you voted in favor. God bless you. You did the right thing. The other 3 that didn't, 1 gave an explanation pertaining to what you call majority vote or whatever, the number that came forward versus the number that's there. And the other person voted because she wasn't voting for anything else. I have to say that Briggs Farms was, I believe, a 4.7 million bond, and we paid for it. And I'll tell you, it is a betterment for us. And those people that live on Jerusalem deserve the same time of service as everybody else that gets hooked up to sewers in town. I have another concern.
Ms. Garceau, your time is up.
All right, I'll call it short. I thank you for your time, but I did have some more to say. I'll address it in another way. Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, Happy New Year to you all, and I hope you all stay well. And I'm sorry, I welcome you to our lovely town. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, too. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Anyone have any items to remove? Somebody can make a motion.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to number 7, a motion to receive an update of the proposed bike path.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. DeLuca and then Mr. Brady. Is that all right? Make sense?
Good evening.
Welcome.
I'm here tonight to give you an update on the progress of the bike path. I believe it was requested by Councilwoman Bonanno. And really, what I'm going to go over is the information that's in your packet. I've put up on the screen the map that you're familiar with, the map that was provided to you back in May, when you were given the opportunity to consider 3 different alternatives. But let me first go through the progress. So I direct your attention to the outline that's attached to the agenda item. Last year, well, about 15 months ago in October of 2012 was the last time we gave you a progress report on the bike path itself. And at that time, there was a little bit of confusion as to whose court the ball was in, because we wanted to know what the next step was at that time. The Canachet Farm Plan had been, executive summary had been approved. The previous council had passed a policy that you wanted the path to go through Canachet Farm. And that was as much as was said when you deliberated on the Canachet Farm Master Plan, with no real specific as it related to the alignment of the path. So there we were in October a year and a half ago, 3 months ago, concerned about how do we get the state off the dime on this. And we realized that we needed to pursue the concept of an advanced feasibility study.
So we had correspondence with RIDOT at that time, and then there was correspondence back and forth in the following 4 months or so. In October, we heard from Representative Tanzi, who had been working with an outside group to walk the site and to try to identify what could be the preferred route that we could send to the RIDOT staff. She was working with 7 town residents at that time, and she didn't have the plan completed at that point, but she did make note that she was going to bring forth a presentation. Then the council voted in November to request RIDOT to do the feasibility study. The manager sent a letter to the director asking that they facilitate a public workshop. And then in January of just last year, 12 months ago, the RIDOT director responded expressing continued commitment, noting that there's funds in the earmarked for this project, and that the extension of the bike path would be assigned to an individual staff member to be carried forward, and that they would eventually, at the right time, schedule a couple public workshops with us. Then you move forward a couple months to the early spring. Representative Tanzi came to you, I think it was March, it might have been April, and presented her the plan that was generated by the members of the public with whom she was working. She pointed out that she was facilitating the process, not advocating it. So that presentation was given to you, and in May of this last spring, as you recall, the staff of my office created this map here so that you could see the 3 alternative routes that utilized some portion of the Seaview Railroad. At this point, last May, we had decided that we wanted to try to use the old Seaview Railroad right of way. So, as you can see up there, the blue line is the one that came right out of the Canachet Farm master plan. It was listed as option 1, and it actually used Riverside Drive, going to the terminus of Riverside Drive and then entering into the Seaview Railroad right of way, running up about 500 or so feet before it would depart the right of way going eastbound across a forested wetland. So the idea here was utilize the southern segment of the raised railroad bed and get it into the Canachet Farm site before you get to the salt marsh. Mr. Brady had submitted a plan back in 2011 that showed the alignment that you see in red. And so I took that because it was the most recent plan I had in the community development files. And we had that digitized onto that map. And then the last one was the one we replicated from Representative Tanzi's report. And that's the one in yellow, which goes much further north on the right-of-way, and then cuts into the site at the very northern perimeter, doubling back, somewhat paralleling the walking path that's here today. In June of last year, RIDOT confirmed receipt of your vote on the preferred route, that being the Seaview route, the one in yellow on the map. And then in July, I went to meet with the RIDOT staff along with our interim manager, Kerbel, to address what progress they had made and what needs to get done next. RIDOT staff expressed potential concerns of other permitting agencies that are in the process. RIDOT doesn't have total control of this project, nor any other project they are doing as a full construction. And it was determined after some lengthy discussion that RIDOT would try to pull together a meeting of all those permitting agencies. And I'm talking about an alphabet soup of organizations: Army Corps of Engineers, Coastal Resource Management Council, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The list goes on. And I did note for myself when we left that meeting, the RIDOT staff was kind of excited about doing this. They don't often have these multi-jurisdictional meetings. So it was something I think they were really looking forward to. It took a couple months. It was October 31st, Halloween Day, when newly appointed town manager Pam Nolan and I attended that meeting with the RIDOT staff, RIDEM, CRMC, Historic Preservation, EPA, Army Corps, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and National Marine Fisheries Service. And as you can see on the second page of my outline, I give you a synopsis of what each of those agencies discussed with us, and you'll see a recurring theme here of a concern for impacts on the wetlands and the need for mitigation of those impacts. Virtually every agency that we discussed talked about it, including Fish and Wildlife, which talked about a concern for a particular species of sparrow and its habitat. In the end of that, RIDOT staff concluded that their next step was to follow through, collect all the information that had been expressed verbally from those agencies, and filter that to their consultant, Face, Spofford, and Thorndike, to incorporate into the advanced feasibility study. And they did state, and I wrote it here in the notes, that this would include a range of alternatives. Now, the question in your minds might be, well, why did we then send up a preferred alternative? The short answer I can give you is because that's what they asked us to do, and you all recall that. It's not the best answer, but it is the truth. I can tell you that whenever RIDOT or any of the state agencies that I've worked with do a feasibility study, they always look at alternatives, even if there's a preferred alternative that's been expressed at the local level. So I knew they were going to do an analysis of other alternatives, and there really isn't anything that I, at my level, could do to stop that from happening. In November and December, they started working with Face, Spofford, and Thorndike. There was, a lot of working meetings. And in January, just a couple of weeks ago, after a couple of phone calls to their staff, Mr. Gannon on the RIDOT staff, I was told that Face, Spofford is in the process of completing the study, and that they will deliver a final report fairly soon. I said sometime in 2014, but it will be sooner than later, in the next, I'd say, 2 months maybe. What can we do at this stage? I'm doing what I need to do, which is stay abreast of their progress. I phone Mr. Gannon a couple times a month at minimum, and try to find out if there's anything I can do at my level to help him facilitate their work. When the time comes, review the feasibility study, and I will be passing it around the building to other departments that may have interest in that. Recreation, Parks and Recreation, obviously, and Town Engineer and DPW. Arrange for a staff level meeting as soon as possible, and I will try to get them to come down here and deliver a presentation at the staff level, and that would be followed up by workshops with you folks.
So the alternate plans or paths are regular practice. They have the yellow one. If they find that that's not going to work, then they investigate another route, but it still comes back to us, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does, Councilman. Thank you for asking that. I neglected to point out that when we were wrapping up the October 31st meeting, and they mentioned the need to in their process, follow through by looking at alternatives, I did ask if they would give us, when they do show the alternatives, if they would give us relative cost estimates of the alternatives, as well as an identification of the permitting and other hurdles that might be presented with each of the alternatives, so that we, at our end, can assimilate what they have done in the course of the time of drafting that plan.
So, Mike, will the alternative paths look similar to, would it be completely different? So we decided as a council, we like the yellow.
Yeah.
And so if that doesn't go through, the alternative, would it sort of mirror what we have in a way that they could make it happen?
I believe what they're going to do is look at the other two, the blue and the red, and they may look at something else. When they do a study such as this, there's always the, for lack of a better term, null hypothesis, which means do something that doesn't involve any construction at all. They did it in the preliminary study that we received in 2000. There was one hypothesis that said, just put signs on the streets, and it cost a couple $1,000s. That was ruled out by everyone as not being appropriate, but they have to do that analysis. So they may do those again this time, but I did ask them to specifically look at the other two alternatives on this map.
So those could be the alternatives. I guess that's my question. We
Yes.
picked the yellow, then we have two other paths as well. So if the yellow doesn't work, then do they have to default to one of those?
I don't think they have to. I think what they would do is they will give us the cost estimates of doing either of them, and a list of the hurdles that might be unique to each one. And then the next step in that case is for us to assimilate those things, and then to talk about what, if any, expense might be accrued at the town level. So they will identify the amount of funds the state has available to do this. We will, as you know, we have a request in on the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, to increase our earmark by $1.55 million. It has not been acted on yet, but it is in the TIP as a request. So with hope that we could get the 1.55 million, we may not have any concern about funding.
So we're still hoping on the yellow.
Yeah, I think, I can't recall what meeting it was, Mike, but I had seen some minutes where you had been present, and I had seen that you had requested that they consider the yellow option. But I thought it was pretty clear that they had ruled that out, and that they were really looking for a much more cost-effective option to present back to us. And I thought in the minutes you had indicated that we would be open to considering really, for them to develop an option that, put forward something for us to consider. And I found it kind of troubling in the minutes. You had even, again, I was not in support of the bike path at any level that would be going through the farm. But in these minutes, and I'd have to go home, I didn't bring them with me, apologies, but there was a suggestion that we would even entertain that a bike path that would go behind the school, which was, I think, something that was not something we would consider. So
the two alternatives, the red and the yellow, both do go behind the elementary school.
The red and the blue, not the yellow, right? Is that what you
No, the blue actually uses Riverside Drive. The red and the yellow actually use the school site, and I think those were always on the table as options. So
well, I think that's to Susan's point, right, that
Okay.
if they came back, right, that would be something that probably we wouldn't consider as a
I see.
council, right?
Right.
So I think that's, in essence, the concern, right, is
Right,
what.
Yeah, Glenna, I guess that you're right. I mean, we had decided on a path, we all agreed on that. And so if it's not going to be, for whatever reason, then we, I think, wanted to talk about an alternative that
all right.
that we would agree on, correct? Is that everybody's
Well,
understanding?
I think this is just a misunderstanding of how this process works. I don't think it's Mr. Luca's fault. There's the DOT, or it's DOT, is not going to force a path down our throats.
That's right.
That's just not how it works.
That's right.
I think Mr. Luca mentioned a DOT representative is going to come speak to staff. I think it would be helpful if that representative comes and talks to us, if possible, at some point down the line as well, to explain how they
Sure.
go forward with that process. Because I think there's a misconception out there that the DOT is going to say, this thing has to go down Mumford by Mr. Gopian's, and then down Wanda past Ms. Shepchelowitz. They're not going to force it on us. That's just not how it works. We have to work with them to come up with a solution that everyone, at least the council, I guess, agrees upon. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say, Mr. President. In the end, we own all the land that the bike path is going to be located on, and we will have to grant an easement to the state to build it. So we have that level of control and leverage. The state has the level of trying to design something that is affordable within the earmark, the money that's earmarked today, with possibly an infusion of funds through the TIP of another $1.5 million or so. And so they're going to be trying to work within those parameters. I don't believe I don't believe they're going to dream up a new alignment that is different from anything you're seeing here. They may look at on-road alignments, and I can tell you that because they did it the first time in year 2000. But it doesn't mean we have to accept it. So I think there's a point of negotiation that's necessary. The minutes you were talking about, I believe, were the minutes of our October meeting that Pam and I attended.
And they did, in fact, they seemed pretty set on proposing an on-road alignment.
Well, I think what they said to us was they saw some real serious concerns about environmental impact and the need for mitigation and the difficulty, based on the standards of these 8 federal or state agencies who issue permits, that may not be able to be met if there are alternatives that avoid or mitigate impact. But it doesn't mean that we cannot continue to bring our plan, our idea forward. What we would need to do is show our commitment to that after hearing the response, hearing the presentation of the study, and finding out what it costs to do these things. What does it cost to do the mitigation? And if we're really committed to that, then we can still advance those alternatives. DOT works. I worked there for 2 years, so sometimes I think everyone speaks the same language. DOT does their design in 4 phases, starting with this, feasibility. Then they go to something called 10% design, which is actual drawings, very, very general. Then to 30%, then to 90%. And they don't even start construction, go to construction solicitation for construction until they go to something called PS&E. So that's 5 levels of design, and at every one of those levels, you can make changes. So it's not as though at this stage, if we don't settle the deal today, that we're out of it altogether.
So, Mike, I guess a little bit of the confusion too is we clearly said like we didn't want to go down Wander, or we didn't want it on the street. So some of what we said we didn't want seems to be coming into the plan. And I guess, as the president asked, it's going to come. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from DOT. But I think that's what the confusion is, because we had said certain things that we didn't want, but they are in the alternate plans.
And I can't stop them from doing the work that they
right.
do in the format that they do it. But we can still reiterate our policy. Our policy doesn't get watered down. Our policy doesn't have to change unless you all decide you want to. So it'll be a point of comparison.
Okay, I get it. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Brady. Just for clarification purposes, I spoke to Mr. Brady over the weekend about his concerns about his own version of the path. And we spoke at length about what he felt was the issue with his path. And from the outset, I think that if that red route was the one Mr. Brady suggested, and he's going to present his reasons for that route, I think it would be maybe in our best interest to let that version be presented to DOT, just to say this is one of the alternatives, wasn't the one the council voted on, but it's an alternative, and these are the reasons why Mr. Brady thinks it's the best route, and maybe it'll help them out in some respects. So that's a possibility after his presentation. I might make that suggestion.
First, thank you for the time to present and make comments on the 3 routes. First, for the record, I'm a landscape architect. I'm very familiar with landforms and the effect of structures placed on them. For the last 4 years, I have volunteered my time to come up with what I think is a possible route through Canarchet Farm. I do that because I'm proud of being a resident of this town, and I think a bike path through the farm will be a great asset to the farm and to the future of Narragansett. Now, I'm going to make some comments on the staff plan that's over there on my left. But before I begin, 2 weeks ago, I raised the issue that the Brady route, which is in red, was not correct. It does not cross the salt marsh in the correct location. It should be crossing the salt marsh 200 to 300 feet to the south of it, at the south end of the salt marsh. The distance of the Brady route, as shown on the legend and as submitted to DOT, shows it as being 6,075 feet long, when in fact it's 5,600 feet long, shorter by 475 feet than as submitted to DOT by staff. And finally, the Brady route does not stop at the westerly end of the beach parking lot. Staff shows all 3 routes stopping at the westerly side of the parking lot. How does it get from there to the beach, which the town council has recommended it get to the beach? The Brady plan, the red plan, shows it going to the beach, and I'll show that to you in another slide. But those 3 items are wrong. They were wrong 2 weeks ago, they were wrong a year ago. And it's very disturbing that, again, after I pointed this out 2 weeks ago, it is still wrong. I won't belabor that point any longer. I've submitted a 9-page letter to you as to what I think are the staff problems regards the bike path, and I won't take up your time tonight. On this plan, I would like to simply point out what I will call the Riverside Drive route, which is in blue, which starts at Mumford Road and goes up Riverside Drive and heads towards Dr. Rissia's property right at this location. This is keyed in as a master plan route, but it's not a master plan route. This is the Riverside Drive route. It is one of 4 routes that the master plan approved back in 2011 to go to DOT, along with the Brady route. 2 of those routes were deleted. So for tonight, I'm going to call it the Riverside Drive route. The southerly end of Riverside Drive, you have 5 residences along that road. That right-of-way is only 30 feet wide. The road is 18 to 20 feet wide paved. When within that right-of-way, you have a National Grid transmission line, a major transmission line. There is not enough room in that 30-foot right-of-way for a bike path. But to suggest that a bike path go down that road in front of these houses that are only 25 feet away from the road is really an insult to these landowners. When there is an obvious location running along the school property to the south where you have a buffer zone of plant material protecting these homes from that aggravation. So the south side of Riverside Drive is not feasible. The north side of Riverside Drive, from the end of the paved road to Dr. Rissica's home, is 900 feet is being proposed for a bike path. That is actually a driveway, 10 feet wide, hot grass, hot gravel, to his home. How would you like a bike path up your 10-foot wide driveway? Not only that, but it's not feasible. The right-of-way is only 30 feet wide. So it really does not make any sense, that portion of that route being proposed to DOT, and it only confuses them as to the sincerity of the town. But further on the blue route, it's proposed across a freshwater wetland. This is a treed wetland, which means it's 400 feet wide crossing that wetland, which means you have to clear large trees. These are tall trees, 30, 40 feet high. Why would you try to propose going through a treed wetland with 3 or 4 brooks going through it and ponds when you can go to the salt marsh and go across a grassed area with a raised deck? It doesn't make any sense. The same thing is with the blue route to the west side of the museum. It goes through the wetlands twice. This is all treed wetlands. There is a natural, easy place to go with the bike path just to the east of the old cart path abutting the museum. So, and the reason I raise it as such a serious concern is because DOT is considering this route seriously now because of the problem with the yellow route, the Seaview route. And I quote from what DOT says in their October 31 minutes. DOT has asked about the opportunity for views of Narrow River from Riverside Drive, unquote, rather than dividing the salt marsh in half. Based on all of these issues, I am really asking the town council to withdraw this route from consideration by DOT. It is not only not feasible, but it's an insult to the abutters to this road. And it is a raping of Canachet Farm. And I just don't, to the life of me, understand why staff has not brought this to your attention before. I think that's all I have to say about the Riverside route. And if we could go to the next slide. So, I know the town council wants to go through the farm. Why do you go through the farm? To make the farm both a beach destination and a point of beginning for biker, walker, and runner. To expose the underused farm to tourists, particularly to Pettaquamsett Cove, to South County Museum, even though South County Museum doesn't want it. For the town's sake, it should go by the South County Museum. To the unique environments of the farm, the environmental environments of the farm, and to make the interior of the farm accessible to the handicapped and emergency vehicles, and to make the environment for hikers safe. These are just 3 reasons to go through the farm. There are 20 more I'm sure you could think of. And for that reason, I am asking the council to make it very clear in writing to DOT that the town will not entertain any on-site routes for the bike path. Not down Arthmore Street, not down Strathmore Street, or Wanda Street, or Kingston Road. The town of South Kingston wants this bike path to go through Canachet Farm and nowhere else. And don't waste time reviewing and analyzing routes that the town does not want. Now, if we could go to the last slide, we could. This is a plan I prepared a year ago in my submittal. If you could, please. You'll lose the edges, though. Is that okay? That's fine, thank you. This was prepared a year ago for submittal to the town. It shows the 2 routes through the farm exclusive of the Riverside route, because at that time I did not know where the staff was going to propose their route. Obviously, I don't think it should be on there anyway. It shows the Brady route in red and white going from Mumford Road, and it runs to the beach, directly to the beach. And it shows the recommended Seaview Railroad route, which is the yellow portion, or the yellow alternate that goes up to the north end of the farm, wraps through and comes back down and joins the main path at the south side of the north meadow. The first leg of the bike path from Mumford Road to the salt marsh is basically generally agreed by to everybody as the best route, and it is recommended by the town to the state. The second leg of the route from the salt marsh to the north meadow is the leg which is in debate, at least from my point of view, as to which is the best one. I'll get to that a little bit later. The third leg of the route from the meadow, so north meadow, down to the beach parking lot is again agreed in general by everyone to be the best route through the farm. And it is that portion of the route that the council has recommended to the state. The recommended Seaview Railroad route does not, and I call it the 40 route in this plan because that is who proposed that route. The Seaview Railroad route stops at the west side of the beach parking lot. The Brady route proposes to continue to the beach, which was the recommendation of the council that it get to the beach. Somehow, there had to be a designated route. Why the Seaview Railroad route stops at the west side of the parking lot is beyond me. I think I know. If it doesn't get to the beach, then basically the bike path is useless. So now, what I would like to do now is go backwards, and seeing as there's a conflict at the beach parking lot, explain why the Brady route goes and why and how it goes to the beach. Ann Hoxie Lane runs right through the middle of that parking lot. It is gravel. It washes out every winter. Almost every winter, they have to go in and regrade it because The topography across runs straight down, and all the gravel basically washes down into the ponds every year. Somehow that has to be corrected. Hoxie Lane should be wrapped around to the south side of the parking lot. The bike path should follow it on the south side of the parking lot. And the existing gravel parking lot, which used to be grass, should revert back to grass and become a grass meadow beach parking lot, the way Canachet Farm should be developed. So that I think is very simple, but it needs to be clarified to DOT that the town wants it to get to the beach, because the plan submitted to the DOT, none of them go to the beach. They stop at the west side of the parking lot. Now to the big conflict on leg 2.
Mr. Brady, I think we understand where you're going with this, and I think we have a consensus that your plan is legitimate, and with Ms. Nolan and Mr. DeLuca, we can propose at least bring it to DOT's attention with your reasoning. We don't have to go through every single step of it, but I think we all get your idea of it and what you propose. So,
I understand that, Mr. Callahan, but there are 5 or 6 serious flaws in the Seaview Railroad route which has never been brought to this council attention by staff or by those presenting it to you.
Mr. Brady, we're not going to withdraw the route. I'm almost positive of that, the route that we proposed before. I'm almost positive that's not going to happen. But I'm proposing we're willing to submit your plan, which is, I think, as good as that idea or better to do that. So to move this along, I'm just asking whether you will consider that option for us to do that. And we don't have any control over which route happens right now. We just don't have that. I mean, it's not getting us where we want to go at this very moment.
But you understand my point that this council does not understand the flaws in the yellow route? They've never been told to you. It'll take me 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Mr. Brady, it's been 15 minutes, been 13 minutes or whatever already.
I'm not finished with the presentation. I have around 3 minutes. I thought I was going to be given up to 10 minutes, up to 15 minutes.
That's going up. You already had 3 that went down, and that's going up. That's 13.
Yeah, I thought I had 15, but
If you can move it along, please.
I'm sorry?
If you can move it along, please.
The yellow route proposes 1,400 feet of deck along the Seaview Railroad and National Grid route. That decking has to be 4 to 8 feet high. There's a question as to whether National Grid will allow it to be placed on there, and there's a question whether there's enough room. But more importantly, this railroad bed from this location up to the north end is at grade and floods every moon tide. It has salt marsh vegetation on it. It is basically the salt marsh. You are dividing the salt marsh in half. You are not only doing that, but you are bringing this bike path within feet of a waterfowl pond that's very valuable regards fish and wildlife. And they've keyed it in as a very valuable resource that we should keep a buffer of at least 200 feet from it. This plan does not do it. The Brady plan protects it. On the north end, the Seaview Railroad proposes to go across a mature upland forest unnecessarily. There's no reason to clear this forest when you have invasive plant materials on the southern route that need to be removed anyway. So that is a real problem. So those are the basic problems with the Seaview Railroad. It's 900 feet longer than needed, and it's going to cost a minimum of $500,000 more than the southern route towards the museum. So that is the end of it. But I really think this council needs to withdraw the Seaview Railroad route for review from DOT. It does not show sincerity of this town to submit a plan to them that is ludicrously not feasible. And I know, I heard what you said, Mr. Callahan, but I really think this council needs to rethink that. I think staff should have brought this to your attention a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bob Vitava. I'm the chairperson of the Friends of the Bike Path, and I have been involved with this bike path since 1995, which is probably longer than virtually anybody here in the room. So we've had an experience of the politics, the bureaucracy, as well as the excitement of seeing something so economically profitable as this bike path. Several things. I was part of the organization that was made up of Narragansett residents, including Mr. Brady and others, including Teresa Tonzi. I did not vote on a particular route, but it was my purpose to try to learn as much as I could about the different qualities of the farm. Just a little bit of an update on Mr. DeLuca's presentation. The firm of Faith, Spofford, and Thorndike is now in the process of preparing a cost and time estimate for DOT for this, for their work. This has not been submitted to DOT at this time, but it is due, so-called, shortly. We will be meeting with Director Lewis, I think it's either the 12th or the 17th of the month. We put different items on the agenda, and certainly we'll put, our organization will put an update on Phase 4 as well as other aspects of the bike path, because there is a maintenance contract coming forth for Phase 1, 2, and some of the work that was unfinished on Phase 3. There's the continuing discussion of wetlands and the environment, and we all appreciate that. But I think if you look around the state, you'll see that there's many examples where all parties have been able to work with this. And one is near the Audubon Society's office off the East Bay Bike Path. There's a decking there that goes from the path to their site as well as over to the Narragansett Bay. A tremendous piece of decking work going through wetlands. So there are examples of dealing with wetlands in a very protective way. And of course, going through the farm will certainly enhance the draw of people coming to this bike path. In essence, it's economic development. And you can speak to the leaders of town manager of South Kingston, and I'm sure they can confirm it's one of the major pieces of economic development that has occurred in South Kingston. I would suggest, if you believe that you do not want it on roads such as Myrtle, Wanda, etc., I would recommend that at this time that you write to DOT and tell them that. And also maybe for the other street, Riverside Drive. Again, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but if that's one that you don't want it on, then tell them at this point, and I think that would at least narrow down the options that would come forth. I think what Teresa Tonzi and I met with Bob Smith of DOT 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, discussing other aspects of the bike path, and the discussion evolved into Phase 4. And at this meeting was also the DOT's environmental person. And so as they're looking at the map and seeing the different aspects of it, the farm and the wetlands, et cetera, there was many ideas that came forth. Well, you could go a little more this way, a little more that way, so forth. So, in other words, I think they're investigating the comments that came forth from the October meeting. I think, and they do appreciate the fact that the town came forth, because they did throw the ball in your court and say, we want something, and you followed through with it. Again, probably none of you have licenses as certified engineers, et cetera, and they understand that, but they appreciate the fact that you worked with the community and came forth. So I think we're on the right track. It was going to take time, and I'm sure you have many other items to deal with here in the town. So as this moves forward, we look forward to your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, miss? Ma'am?
Hi, my name's Siobhan Early, and I live on Riverside Drive, and I'm the house that's right on the corner. Mrs. Hagopian's my neighbor. And my concern is, I guess, while we're talking about the path going through Canarchet Farms and that stretch out, how we're getting from what's existing there across the street. Because they don't line up, for starters, the path coming off that's there now, to Riverside Drive. Nor could Riverside Drive accommodate a bike path and my getting out of my driveway. That's just to start. That doesn't go into the drainage issues we have there, the runoff, from the school department. I have more water in the front of my yard than I do on the river, at times. So I've got a lot of concerns, and I just wanted to put them out there, to see if anybody's addressed, because I don't see the connection from the bike path that exists now over to Riverside Drive. It's not a straight shoot. You must be aware of that. Any comments, or is this something that's just going to get discussed down the line? I mean, I'm concerned not only for myself coming out of my property and hitting somebody that may be there, but I'm worried about children crossing over there. I mean, has the DOT said that it's a four-way stop, it's going to be a traffic light?
I'm sure it's all some things they have to address. I mean, it's at the
Okay, as you
in the
said, I didn't
infancy
even
of
hear
it.
it mentioned tonight. It's like we're outside discussing where we're going with it, and we haven't even gotten it across the street, and it is a concern of mine. On top of that, when I come out of the street to turn left, it's totally blind there. So while I'm looking left, anybody coming across, I mean, I just think it's an accident waiting to happen. So it's a concern of mine, I just wanted to bring it forward. Thank you.
Ms. Shabchelowitz.
I want to say I'm extremely disappointed both at the display. How in the world are we supposed to interpret a display like that? I mean, if you go on MapQuest, you can get driving directions. And I fail to understand why that was not put to the best of their ability in writing so that we could understand where it was actually going, even though some of it might be rural. But I would say that map is much better, and I applaud Mr. Brady for all his hard work. Also, on this list of bike path activities that was in the town council notes, there had been a petition submitted by the residents of Wanda Street. We are citizen advocates because we live on the street. I had also, was not mentioned. It's never been mentioned. And I had talked with the chief of police about the safety plan if they did bring it down Wanda Street. No safety plan. Now, Mr. DeLuca, to be honest, he intimidates me when he keeps talking about putting signs up and it being the cheaper way. And there's just, it doesn't have a logical plan of how they're going to do it on a very narrow street with driveways coming in from both sides and cars constantly speeding up the street. Now, I'd like to know why we spent $92,000 on a consultant for the 10-year plan, and we don't get better communication from our town employees on such an important issue. And if Mr. Brady, who I have ultimate confidence in, if he is able to give us all these lengths and how wide things are, and the other resident that talked about blind corners, why isn't that given to the people of the community? Why isn't the respect given to the people that live on that street to at least acknowledge that we had some concerns? And rather than just sort of using it as a tactic, well, we could put it on the street and then we could just hang up the signs. That to me is intimidating, and I think we have to be Narragansett strong and insist that we watch out for the quality of life in our town for the residents and the bikers that are going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garceau.
I'd like to say thank you for the manner on how you address the concerns from Mr. Brady, and I applaud you for that. Thank you. I am concerned, and I didn't come here to speak following Karen, but I will. Karen has raised some concerns, and those concerns that she raised could have been prevented by way of the town manager providing a report on the bike path to keep us informed. And I realize you had an acting town manager. You had two. And I have to say, the person who was the town manager, who no longer is here, did a fantastic job on the reports that were submitted by, at the town council meetings, an update. That has been missing for a long, long time, and I think you need to revert back to those reports from the town manager. Okay? Please. I'm here tonight to share and ask some questions. I know that in the past, there were bicycle paths, proposals for bicycle routes or whatever, and I think there was one on the Narrow River. That didn't go through, I don't believe. Then there were others, and there's a whole list of bike proposals that are listed under the RIDOT. Some of them have made it, some of them have not. And there's one I'm still waiting for an answer pertaining to the Seaview from Quonset. Quonset is moving. Quonset has got deep water wind in there. You look, what's going on? Are we not getting enough information from our officials? I don't understand. But let me pose my questions, and I hope you will take under advisement my questions and concerns. It's my understanding that bike path was proposed, and that was supposed to come in by way of Canachet Farms and go to the beach. That's the way I understood it, and I hope that's the way it goes, and it's a direct route to the beach. And it comes through that Canachet, near the museum. And I have trouble with my eyes and this, so bear with me. The Rhode Island on May 17th, 2004, the Narragansett Town Council had a regular town council meeting. And it was a motion to endorse the Rhode Island Department of Transportation's choice of the former Seaview trolley line corridor as a bicycle and pedestrian path, and this project would be included in the next transportation improvement plan. Can somebody please get back to me and tell me what that means? I would appreciate that. Also, I want to know, in regards to the financial status, why haven't we heard one thing pertaining to how much money is in there, how much money is spent, how much money is left for our rent. That should have come from the department, which should have come from the town manager, or to provide an update pertaining to the financial. And we didn't hear anything from Mr. DeLuca in reference to the financial status of what's left and so forth. I know, but I'm not going to do it because it's not my job. Okay? That should be for us to know without us having to do the work. That's why we have these people sit here. We have a town manager, we have a town council president, we have the members of the board. We should be kept informed about what is taking place and what has taken place with this bike path down through the years, and that has not been forthcoming except for tonight, and I find that unacceptable. Now, I have another question. I tried to get some information pertaining to repairs and maintenance, and I looked and I searched, because I saw something and I couldn't remember where I found it. I didn't have much luck. But it's my understanding that there has to be a contract that has been signed.
Ms. Garceau, your time is up.
Please, may I finish? It'll take me 2 seconds. I would like to have someone provide me with a contract that the town was supposed to sign with the state RIDOT. I haven't seen it, and I'm not sure if there's one signed, but I would appreciate a contract signed by RIDOT with the town for this bicycle path. It's received information on that, and I don't have it. I attempted, and the reason I did that is because I want to know who is responsible in writing once the bike path has been completed for repairs and maintenance. So please provide me with that contract. Thank you.
So I think I'm going to just try to summarize for the council so we could move forward. So this is what I think I heard and know from the council, that we look at the preferred path, which is the Seaview Yellow Route, that we include the Brady alternate plan, that we eliminate the blue, the Riverside Drive, that we just want to make sure that no path would be approved that's on the road as an option. That's what I think we heard from the taxpayers, what we decided a while back, and so I would like to place that on file. The blue. Yes, the Riverside. As an option, yes. Is that, my colleagues, is that kind of what we had summed up? Did I say anything that does that sound?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I have a few things I want to say, but yeah, but.
Doug, does that sound like good? Okay, so.
The problem I'm having here is all the testimony that we've been listening to, we've already heard it before, haven't we? When we sent the original thing in, the only thing I thought we're talking about here is Mr. Brady's plan as to whether we're just going to forward it to the Department of Transportation for review after he made his presentation. I mean, we're rehashing stuff that we've heard before. I mean, for a long period of time, and I guess over several years. I mean, why are we doing this?
So, again, I think that we had, as a council, did the yellow as a preferred. I think I heard the president say, it would be a good indication to send up Mr. Brady's, which I would agree to. I think that we said one of the options that we didn't want is on the road, which is the blue. So these are just sort of a summary of what we said, so I'm looking for a second on that.
Second. Oh, Matt, you want to speak, right?
Yeah, a couple of things. When we came here on May 6th of this year, I knew the bike path had been an issue in town for a long time. And when we voted on May 6th, we discussed the different alternatives. And there was, as Doug mentioned, there was a lot of testimony about that. When I came to that meeting, though, I kind of, in the back of my mind, was thinking about the connection from South Kingstown to the farm. And one of the people tonight mentioned that, the connection from South Kingstown to the farm, and I kind of wanted to talk more about that. I think that's something I don't think has gotten a lot of airtime and is a concern of mine. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that I think we've been so focused on the farm and the yellow path and the Brady path that we've lost track of the whole picture. And we just heard concerns about the roads down on Mumford, and I mean, and those almost are more of a worry, really. I think so I know people don't want to table this, but I have no problem sending the two over, but I think we are forgetting that piece. And like I said, I came, but I kind of thought maybe that had been litigated and decided by prior councils, but it sounds like it hasn't fully been, unless Susan and Glenna want to, do you know what I'm addressing? The connection from South
out my
Kingstown.
window. I actually see it, and Siobhan's right. I mean, it's something terrible is going to happen right there. It's awful.
I always thought that was a technical thing that DOT would have to address down the line. I assume they would, and that was my assumption. That's why it never came up in my comments. Whether it's a light, a stop sign, something like that, I think they'd have to consider those things, and they're the experts, and they will. So, yes, sir. You come to the mic, please.
I'm Bob Risica. I live at the end of Riverside Drive, which obviously would be impacted, and I'm glad to hear that you're taking Riverside Drive off the table. My question is, at what point does the environmental impact studies get done, and those come into consideration for the path you're going to consider? Because all of those paths that you're considering still go across the marine estuary, which is very sensitive, and I think you have a responsibility as stewardship to the environment to consider those implications, and I think those implications should come into play before you even bring it to DOT to see if they're even feasible. And I hope that, hopefully Coastal will be involved at some point, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will be involved. And I think it's very important that you consider those. And to consider any path that takes it onto the wetland and the marsh really should be thought with a lot of forethought. This is a sensitive marine estuary. It's almost a wilderness area in an urban environment, and we don't see that very often. And that's why I live there, because of what that area represents. And to bring a bike path in there with hundreds of people a day with their trash and whatever is irresponsible in a lot of respects. And I just really hope that you bring that environmental impact statement into play before you act too much further along this, because I really find it unlikely that Seaview plan will survive the environmental impact study. It's really an area that's incredibly sensitive, so hopefully you consider that. And if you can answer the question when that
Thank you.
process.
And Mr. DeLuca addressed a lot of those concerns with DOT, and that was part of his presentation a little earlier.
So when does that happen?
It's part of the DOT feasibility study, I believe. Mr. Vengermish. Oh, my God. You put on the agenda? You put on the agenda?
Yeah, we need Al Alba here to reiterate that he'll be dead long before this bike path is ever done. But this is a boring statement from an accountant, and I guess heard this since year 2000. This is 14 years later. I've changed skin twice already. I've never heard any cost constraint, any cost estimate. This, to me, is a simple capital budgeting problem in which you've got a number of different approaches, and I've never heard a cost figure, ever, in all these years. And to me, this is the first thing I would have heard about any route, is what do you think this will cost? And then you have an idea. Of course, you can apply for more money, but I've never heard the cost figure mentioned. And to me, if you're doing something like this without a cost figure, this is just why Al Albert is right. He will never see this bike path in his lifetime.
So I'll second Ms. Bonanno's motion to place on file and send to DOT her suggestions.
Thank you.
All in favor?
The only issue with it is we're not for, I'm sorry, if we're not for the road going on roads, I'm concerned about that piece that I feel just we're ignoring, connecting South Kings. Am I off base?
Well,
I
we
mean,
did put any option near the road, so maybe they can address that. I mean, I think you're right.
If you want to add that?
Can we add that and then move forward?
because I think Mr. Brady's path should be included,
Yeah.
as you mentioned. The blue should go, but
Do
maybe
you-
for a future meeting, we can talk about the Mumford
No.
connection. I
Okay.
mean,
then-
I'm not
Why
saying
don't
I'm
we
putting
just-
that on
We
yet.
can
Put
just
that as a
add, we can
concern.
add.
As a
the-
concern to place,
As a
concern.
concern.
to give to DOT.
Yeah, the Mumford connection, okay?
I think there's some danger issues that have been brought to our attention.
Okay, so that's the list, I think, and he seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Did you vote, Matt?
I said yes.
Okay, 4-1, the motion carries. Moving on to number 8, a motion to adopt the amendment to appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2013-2014 to provide repairs and upgrade to the remote pump station.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 9, a motion to adopt the amendment to the appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2013-2014 to provide funding for the replacement of a new heating system in Town Hall.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Wojciechowski.
I just have a question. It says there is sufficient unallocated funds in the capital improvement fund. When I hear unallocated, it brings to mind surplus. Do we have surplus funds hanging around? Really, if there's surplus funds, I'd like to go back to the taxpayer. I don't, and then I see on a page over here the general fund contribution of $487,000 going to the capital improvements fund. So it does seem like we are taking monies from the taxpayers, or we're allocating, we get some surplus funds somewhere. Why do we have surplus funds in this capital budget to start with? That's, did we present stuff that we no longer need or shouldn't have put in there? I just don't like the idea of surplus, because anytime we have a surplus somewhere, everyone thinks we got extra money to spend, and they always find a way to spend it. So this, now, I think we got rid of the word surplus, because I heard that so many times, and now we're putting unallocated funds, and so I don't want to be, I just want to see that. I don't want to see surpluses in there. I want to see close monitoring of what we ask for and what we do, and minimize these surpluses that we end up spending. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 10, a motion to grant a revocable easement to Martha Murphy, inuring to the benefit of Plat E, lots 23 and 24.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 11, a motion to grant permission to Henry and Elizabeth Knoyer and Kettle Building Movers to move an existing home over the streets of Narragansett from 33 Stanton Avenue to 7 Oak Avenue during the period of the month of February 2014, subject to local and state regulations.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
I have just a couple of questions on that. It's a beautiful home. So I just was, the question actually is for the manager first. So I know that the people on the street are enthusiastic about the house being moved, but are they notified of the home being moved from one location to another? Are the residents of that street, I know they're seasonal people, but I'm just curious, are they notified?
Mr. Santilli, our building inspector, is here tonight specifically for these questions, which he can answer. If you would hear him, I would appreciate it.
Thanks. So Tony, I was just wondering that.
Basically, what happens is, when you move a house, it has to meet all new codes. So Betsy came to me and said she wanted to move this house from Stanton to 7 Oak Avenue. When you move a house, it's got to meet total plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and structural. But this is a situation where time is of the essence, because it's not like moving a modular home. She has to coordinate with National Grid to move wires, et cetera. She already had the property surveyed. We're working very closely with her. It will be subject to state and local regulations. As far as notification to the neighbors, we could probably notify them, but it's not like a common practice where you do notify them.
Yep, so I was just asking because I was wondering if they were going to be out of electricity or something, if the street was closed, there was something about the wires. So I didn't know if they were down for service. I know that it said seasonal, but I actually know some people that live year-round on the street as well.
It's not a common practice, however, they're probably going to have to get police escorts to bring this building down the road. They'll have to coordinate that with Dean, and that would be an expense that you would have to incur.
So are they without power? That was the question. Are they without power?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
We have written to National Grid, and we've been in touch with their engineer. What they're telling us is that it'll take a maximum of 4 hours. They can't promise that there won't be any power, but they think it will be minimal disruption. And as far as the neighbors go, I've contacted all the abutters and several of the people that aren't in the neighborhood, and I intend to speak to every neighbor there's 2 of them I just can't locate right now, but there's nobody who's affected by that 220.
You're being a good neighbor. I was just wondering if we in the town notified. I appreciate it, Betsy.
All the neighbors in the area know about it.
Could you just state your name for us, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Elizabeth Canoyer from 7 Oak Avenue.
Thank you.
It's not something where we would notify, but Ms. Canoyer is going to take care of that, so.
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody to be without power and all of a sudden say, well, what's going on?
I can tell you that based on Scott Cattell's initial survey of the property, he said this is as good as it gets in terms of compatibility with the 2 structures. We're not even covering, there's plenty of room left over in the yard. It's almost a virtual perfect fit, and we're even going to be more conforming to the setback than the existing structure, which is going to be demolished. And Tony and his department have been great because I've been a nuisance. I tried everything to try to save the shack, and I couldn't.
I didn't say that.
I know, but as you can see, the structural demolishing is quite lovely.
It's an unusual situation because she has to have wires moved, et cetera. It's not like moving a modular home over town roads.
Right.
We usually approve it, and right before we issue the permit, the council approves it. This will be subject to state and local regulations, and I'll work with Betsy on it. So.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Thanks. That was it. That was it, I think, unless someone else has something.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 12, a motion
Video
to
it.
approve with the purchase of a new 2014 Ford Fusion from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $21,286.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Anybody? Mr. Wojciechowski?
It's coming from forfeiture money, Stanley.
Yeah, I read that, and I was very happy to see that. However, since there's expenditures for the police of $419,000, I was hoping that instead of buying cars, we could use some of these forfeitures to take care of the capital improvements fund projects that must be necessary for this $419,000. I'm trying to minimize buying of cars. Let's put the money where it might do some better.
It was budgeted in the budget, and so we're saving it. This is an offset to what was budgeted, so effectively, we are saving the money.
Yeah, saving the money.
See that?
I lost that one. We're saving money when you spend
This- this-
21,000, I don't know.
This vehicle was budgeted,
Oh, it was budgeted.
right?
So can we stop the budget on a vehicle and put it improvements on a fire, on a police station instead? Can we
Well,
change
right-
it and
I
not buy the
guess
vehicle?
Right now, I guess we'll just sit on the money and figure it out.
I want to fix let's fix the police department and forget the vehicles. Also, do we need a new one? Do we need a new one? Can we use secondhand administrative vehicle? Can we go with a 2-year-old so we could save another $5,000, $10,000 by going to older vehicles? Everybody, get rid of depreciation by buying an older vehicle rather than a newer vehicle.
We'll get 1,000,000 miles out of it, Stan.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look of ways of saving, but because I know vehicles are a sensitive issue. We always have to have the latest thing out there. In fact, for an administration, I even brought up to Mr. Lucius years ago, and he had them out here. We had the old police cars were used in some kind of administrative fashion. Instead of taking your own car mileage, whatever, you had 2 or 3 cars parked out here, then anybody could use what they want. So maybe the police need to do something like that with the older vehicles, use it in that capacity rather than new vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
13, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an amendment of the zoning ordinance, Section 6, Table of Use Regulations, to provide that use 5817, expansion of legally non-conforming full-service restaurant to allow sale of beer and wine only, to be a use allowed by special use permit in the BC waterfront business zone. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Just one point, so on the blue sheet, it says it was approved by a request of 5-0, it would be 4-0. It was approved 4-0.
Is that a second now?
Yes, it is.
I have a question.
Well-
I have a question, too, that they have to come back for the actual license itself, right?
They're going to have to
Because
go
they
to
have to-
zoning for a special use permit.
And
If
they
they've got to get that first, then they come before us for a liquor license. So this
This only
ordinance-
applies to the zoning.
No, this applies to, this was in a BC zone where they couldn't have alcohol at all, right, Mark?
Yeah, that's what I'm
This only
saying.
It only gives them
So
the
we
right to
lifted
ask
that.
for it.
Yeah, that's the way it was explained the last time. Okay.
Okay, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Ms. Bonanno.
You're
Number
welcome, Mr.
14,
Gallion.
a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 10, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Traffic Control Devices.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Can we just have a description of this? I don't know.
It was Dean left, but it's Hurricane the Barry, the little thing.
This arose basically out of Hurricane Sandy, where we close off certain roads with traffic control devices and people ignore them or move them or whatever. So Public Works and the Police Department came up with a draft of an ordinance to deal with that, plus just generally complying with traffic control devices, which I then modified, and that's what's before you right now.
So this includes like if like signs for when there's like go this way, orange barrels, that's
That-
that people
All
are
those things
removed.
are included, so they can now be enforced by the police department.
Yeah, if they pick up the barriers and move them because it's,
But
you know,
they
wanna
were
go
driving
beyond it.
around them too and stuff. It was a huge issue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 15, a motion to appoint Vincent Flynn to the Economic Development Committee for a 3-year term, which will expire on December 1st, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Do we have to make the resignation of Larry? No, okay.
Wait, what?
Larry's not on it, so I just wanted to make sure.
I think he resigned.
He resigned, right? Okay.
So this is filling out a term.
That's right, this is
isn't
filling
up
his-
right now. This is up because somebody resigned.
Correct.
There was an open, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Motion carries 4-0. That concludes the regular agenda. The next item is an executive session. A motion to retire to executive session at the end of the February 3rd, 2014 Town Council meeting as in accordance with 42464 to discuss personnel regarding James Laguerre, in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 42465A1, and appoint Mark McSally, solicitor, as clerk pro tem. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor, Ms. Hagopian?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Aye. Ms.
Aye.
Bonanno? Mr.
Aye.
Menace? Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.